To create a Turnitin assignment, you need to browse to the content area in your Blackboard module where you wish students to access the submission point. We go to the Assessments option and select Turnitin assignment. There's a number of different types of assignment you can select here. We're going to stick with the basic paper assignment. First thing we're going to do is give the assignment a title and then a point value. And in the main, we're always going to leave allow only file types that Turnitin can check for similarity. Now, potentially you could have other files submitted to Turnitin, such as, for instance, an image if you are having a poster submitted. But in the main, it will normally be a text document, and we are using Turnitin so that can be run through the originality check tool. Start date refers to the first date and time that a student is able to submit to the assignment. You may have some guidance within your school on the submission window that's allowed. Some schools allow a week, others longer. Next, you would set your due date. Be careful to get the time correct. Many of the schools have guidance that stipulates that this timing must be within working hours so that students can get support if necessary. The post date refers to the date at which students will be able to access their grade and their feedback in Turnitin, and the date when this information is pushed into the Blackboard Grade Centre. Although the university has a commitment to a 4-week turnaround for grades and feedback, for the sake of setting up this assignment, it's normally sensible to set the post date to be 2 to 3 months after the due date. Once you're ready to release your grades, you can simply change this date to the desired date and they will be released. Normally this would happen within that 4-week window. However, this gives us a fail-safe to make sure that the grades and feedback are not released to students before they are ready. Next we have our optional settings. I'll expand the menu and scroll down. I'm not going to go through every single one of these options. You'll notice that each of them have this blue question mark symbol next to it, and you can see I've rolled over it there and it's given you a little tooltip of some further information. I will only be talking about some of the most important settings. Generate similarity reports for student submission is a setting that has some wider ramifications than the text would suggest. If I use the drop-down menu here, you can see we have 3 options. Generally, the 2 that are used here are either immediately at first report is final or on due date. The important difference between the 2 is that if we use immediately first report is final, that means that students will only ever get 1 submission attempt at this assignment. If we select on due date, it means that students can overwrite their submissions all the way up until the due date, so they have multiple submission attempts. This is increasingly being adopted across the university as it gives students more control over their own submissions. If a student makes a submission and realizes that either they've submitted the wrong document, or maybe they actually just did a little bit more work on the submission and want to submit another version, then they can do so. Otherwise, it means that either you as the academic or the program support team will need to delete their submission and ask the student to submit again. This is unnecessary administration which can be avoided by simply selecting on due date. Allow students to see similarity reports. In most cases, policy suggests that this should be set to no. Reveal grades to students only on post date. We discussed what post date meant earlier in this tutorial. Just as a reminder, this is the date at which grades and feedback will be released to students. It's very important that this is set to yes. If set to no, the grades and feedback will be released as soon as they are entered into the Turnitin feedback studio. In most cases, anonymous submission should be enabled, but again, this is very important that you check the exact guidance in your school for the type of submission you are creating this assignment for. Submit papers to. Now in the main, for most submissions, you will select Standard Paper Repository. There are some caveats to this though. If, for instance, you're creating an assignment for a draft submission, you'll want to select No Repository. Otherwise, what will happen is we'll end up with some false positives on the originality check when students submit the real assessment. Additionally, there might be information in the submission which might be considered sensitive. This might be personal sensitive data, or it might be commercially sensitive data. Selecting No Repository in this case would be suitable. At this stage, you can also add a rubric or grading form. Further information regarding rubrics and grading forms can be found in another tutorial. However, it's one thing to bear in mind that you can actually attach rubrics or grading forms anywhere up until anybody starts marking work submitted to the assessment. The only thing left to do now is click Submit. You are then given this message that the Turnitin assignment has been successfully added. Click OK. And we refresh back to our original content area, and you can see there your assessment is on the page.